Hi, this is Gregory Giannakko. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about strategy, scaling, and tactics, not necessarily in that order. When you start a company, when you're starting off, or the first phase of your growing your business, it's a lot about strategy, the long-term strategy, and then those tactics that you do in between, where it's the way you advertise or market, or whether you hire, whether you expand into other cities. Those tactics along the way help you grow. Those are the steps you take, the sneaky, secret things you do. I don't mean sneaky illegally, but things that you think of yourself like, how this will help us get ahead. Those are tactics. Now the next phase is when you've gotten to a point where you're actually comfortably profitable, and now you're growing and you can step back a little bit and you adjust your tactics because you don't have to fight your way up the ladder. Now you have to think more strategically because now you're visible to others such as competitors, and you've got to really be smart. So I say strategically, I kind of mean smart. You got to be really smart about it. You're comfortably profitable, you want to stay that way, and yet you want to keep investing into growing. So now I would say once you get to, depends on your industry, I'll pick a number, like once you get into the $1 million a year annual revenue, and you start to get into $2 million, $3 million, as you get up there, you really need to start to think strategically, what do you want to do over the next couple of years, or over the next couple $1 million in growth? So you have a couple choices. Two that I'm familiar with. Either you can say, we're just going to keep this and maintain it, and it'll be a lifestyle business, we'll just keep working it, we'll bring in new people, and we'll just stay at a certain level and we'll just grow. We're happy making $500,000 a year profit. Anybody would be. I think that's very noble. No problem with that, except if the competition comes along and you're trying to maintain yourself at a certain level, they might just eat away at you. They could even undercut you, whether in extra services or lower prices. So you got to be careful because nothing ever stays really static. If you try to maintain a certain level, generally you're going to atrophy. You'll lose customers, you have customer churn, and competitors come along and eat you. So you always have to have a plan to at least grow a little bit to stay even. So you could do that. You could decide that you want to grow large enough to be acquired by someone else, and to do that, you want to grow your top line sales revenue. Not so much focus on the net profit, because the acquiring company is going to look at your top line revenue and your top line gross margin, like cost of goods sold after sales to get your gross margin. That's what they're going to look at, because they can take care of a lot of those expenses themselves. They're larger than you are, and they certainly will be. Once they buy you, they'll be larger than you are for sure. So you'll have a larger company that's probably more efficient and more expert at handling things. They have a marketing department, they've got a president, a CEO, they've got lawyers, accountants. They've got a lot of all that in place, and like I mentioned before, they'll probably eliminate 60%, 50% of your overhead and your administration, your general administration costs. They'll take that out of it. So that's where they'll make their profit. They can pay for your company just in the savings they make. Sold a company for a lot, and when I sold that company, they actually put 60 million more into it. We sold it for 14 million after 30 months of operation. And they put 60 million into it. I thought, these guys are crazy. Why are they pouring so much money into it? I don't take credit for what they built, because they really rebuilt the whole company. I take credit for starting it on my dining room table. I take credit for working with a wonderful investor who put the money up and great people to work with. So I'll give credit to all our group in starting it up. But after they bought it, they get the credit for that. So, but I will say is, I thought they were a little bit nuts. They put $60 million over 4 years into the company that I started at my kitchen table, dining room table. The kids were in the kitchen, so I had to go to the dining room. Now they had 74 million into it, and you know what? They sold it to Harcourt for $123 million. Now, people see in the paper it got sold, and they figure, wow, Gregory, I didn't get any of that money. I sold out long before that. But, relatives, gossiping and so on. So that was actually a negative. People thought I had all this money, but we had sold out years ago. But it was interesting to see their strategy, and their strategy was to put a lot of money into it to grow that top line revenue. I mean, they were losing millions a year, but they built up a company with a lot of top line revenue, really got involved in it was a K-12 education company, and they got involved in all the schools and the libraries and from kindergarten to 12th grade, and build up the internet presence and everything. Why? Because they sold out to a humongous, like I guess $1 billion company. So you could take that route. You could invest time, energy, money, and grow that top line revenue. Don't worry so much about the losses, or if you're making much money, just keep go, and really build your top line revenue. And a large company will come along and say, hey, they'll notice you when you get to about $10 million, $5 or $10 million. That's interesting. I mean, a really large company, $1 billion company, isn't going to even want your company even if you gave it to them if it's only doing $1 million a year. It's too much trouble for them. So you could grow your top line revenue and sell out to a large company. And the other strategy is you can be the acquirer. And in that case, you want to really focus on being efficient and building up an organization that can scale. So you want accounting systems. Believe me, a lot of the stuff that you don't put much thought into catches up with you. So you need an accounting system that scales. You need a legal team, an accounting team, outside auditors, because you'll need to probably borrow money at some case. So you need audited statements or reviewed statements at some point. And you can build up your company to be very profitable, like a profit engine that's aggressive and scalable. Like a whale, it can come and just eat another company and digest it very, a snake eats a rat and you see that big lump and they say it takes a month sometimes to digest it. You don't want to be that. You want to be able to grab another company and buy them and ingest them and take it in and be smooth about it. And it takes a while to transition when you buy a new company. So you could probably, if you're a medium small company, you could probably buy 2 companies a year and grow your revenue that way. Imagine if you're doing $5 million a year and you bought a company doing $1 or $2 million a year. Now all of a sudden you're at $7 million and your profit is your own profit that you made before plus half the profit they're making, because you're going to save half of the expenses. Very quickly you can get your profit up there. And the more profit you have, the more credit you can get, the more respect you get in the business, because you have also a lot more sales, and you can go and be attractive to someone else that sells to you. You want to try to buy on terms when you can, and they'll trust you more. If you're a $40 million company, I would trust a $40 million company more, that they'd pay me their, let's say, $1 million down and $1 million over payments. I'll trust them more than if they're a skinny little $1 million company and they want to give me a few $100,000 up front. I'm maybe a little more skeptical of that. So stay where you are and have a nice little company, but you have to grow a little bit so you don't sink into oblivion. Number 2, raise your top line revenue so you become a big enough fish that catches the eye of a large acquirer, or dedicate yourself to being the acquirer and look for smaller companies to buy. In each of those cases, you'll have to focus on a different part of your business. Each of those are fine options. There's no better way than the other way. I personally, looking back on it, I think I've always sold to larger companies. I haven't been the acquirer. There was one company that we built, the internet company, which did acquire. It went public, and then it started acquiring a lot of other companies before that and after that. But when they went public, what they had was they had public stock to share. So I could buy your company, let's say $3 million for your company. I could give you $1 million down and $2 million in stock, and you were satisfied with that because it was publicly traded stock. That's probably far and above most of us, so we would do ourselves, or anybody that's watching this. It's an option, but it's usually on the higher end. So yeah, those are the 3 options. And if you have any questions about it, or you want some of my input on it, just hit me up and I'll be glad to discuss it with you. All right, thanks.